In Prohibition-era Texas, the dusty, desolate town of Jericho, Texas, sits just 50 miles from the Mexican border. A wanderer with no clear past and no apparent future drives into town. Upon arriving, he quickly finds himself targeted by a group of Irish mobsters through a careless glance at a young woman who happens to pass by. Finn, the lead henchman, catches the man staring at the young woman and doesn't take it lightly. The lead hood warns the man against staring at Mr. Doyle's woman.
I remember a guy once told me this is a free country.
After some mutual trash talk, Finn deliberately smashes the headlight of the man's car, slashes his tires, and a big guy named Jacko the Giant punches his windshield like an eggshell. As if nothing happened, he points the man toward the sheriff's office.
Sheriff's office is right over there in case you want to complain about anything.
Stranded and with no money to get his car fixed, the man visits Sheriff Ed Galt and his silent deputy, Bob, but both men make it clear they won't lift a finger to help him.
Not a goddamn thing.
Instead of offering assistance, Galt simply advises the man to arm himself.
Don't be coming to me for help. You're on your own here.
The man steps into the town saloon, finding it deserted except for the weary owner, Joe Monday. Joe told the man that once a quiet town, it has now become a battleground for two warring crime syndicates between Doyle's Irish-American mob and Strozzi's Italian-American Mafia. While the Italians are winning in the big cities, it's clear that they're the weaker gang in Jericho. The man orders a whiskey, then quietly pulls a pair of pistols from his bag. With calm determination, he crosses the street to the Irish gang's headquarters, intent on confronting Finn. In a cool but cautious tone, the man asks if Finn plans to pay for the damage. Finn responds by going for his gun, but he's too slow. Without hesitation, the man unloads on the rest of the building. The remaining men stay frozen, too shocked or too afraid to react.
Tell Mr. Doyle if he'd have hired smarter guys, none of this would have happened.
After hearing about the death of the Irish thug Finn, Fredo Strozzi, the boss of Jericho's Italian mob, approaches the man with a proposition and asks his name. The man answered,
Smith.
Smith? What's Smith what? Well, you got a first name?
John.
Strozzi, determined to eliminate his rivals, is offering money to anyone who can handle a gun. Sensing an opportunity, Smith offers his services as a hired gun to the Strozzi gang. Smith meets Strozzi's attractive girlfriend Lucy, who guide him to his room at the Italian-controlled hotel and free meals. Also, Smith gets to know about Doyle's most fearsome right-hand man, Hickey. Giorgio Carmonti, Strozzi's ill-tempered cousin, shows up late to the communal meal and instantly takes a disliking to Smith. Sensing the tension, Smith quietly excuses himself.
If you had a problem with me, Giorgio, you take it up with your boss. I just work here.
That night, while in the company of the prostitute Wanda, the Irish set their plan in motion to take Smith out. But Smith is quicker. He guns down both assassins before they can get the drop on him. Realizing he was set up, he turns to Wanda, later discovering she had been blackmailed into betraying him. Showing no sympathy, Smith leaves her behind to be taken in by Sheriff Galt. Before long, Smith is called to a remote hideout in the desert, a rundown roadside diner where Strozzi and his men are plotting their next move. The target, an incoming shipment tied to Doyle coming in from Mexico. When the moment arrives, Smith is sent ahead to intercept the convoy near the border. There, he approaches the commanding officer, Ramirez, and makes him a tempting offer: betray Doyle's men in exchange for a share of the spoils. Ramirez agrees. The Mexican soldiers turn on the Irish, ambushing them in a sudden bloodbath without mercy within their car for a whole minute. John Smith finds the massacre gruesome to watch and seizes an entire caravan loaded with smuggled liquor. He then drops a quiet tip to Sheriff Galt about the recent convoy ambush and hears yet another grim tale about Hickey's violent past. The next morning, Doyle and his henchman Jack approach Smith with an offer: assassinate Fredo Strozzi. With Smith already inside the Italian gang, they see him as the perfect insider. Smith, however, shows hesitation, unsettled by the request. Doyle mistakes his reluctance for refusal. Shortly after, Smith walks away from Strozzi's crew. Smith responds by roughing up Giorgio. Furious, Strozzi pulls a gun on him and insists that nobody quits on him. However, Strozzi backs down, unwilling to risk his life for Giorgio, whom Smith dismisses as a half-wit.
You really want to get killed for a half-wit?
With both sides on edge, Smith decides to double down and play them against each other. He lays low for a few days, trying to stay sober while waiting for Hickey's return. Meanwhile, the town's mechanic tips him off that Giorgio has been asking questions, digging into Smith's past. Smith seizes the opportunity. He feeds Giorgio a warning to be wary of Ramirez, suggesting the Mexican officer might betray him.
There's a rumor Ramirez is going to go back on Dole's payroll.
Giorgio takes the bait and heads for Mexico to investigate. Smith then turns around and informs the Irish exactly where Giorgio will be and adds that he'll be meeting with the same Mexicans who stole Doyle's trucks and cash. The Irish pay for the intel, though Smith still avoids committing to anything solid.
I don't play this style! What the hell are you holding back for?
Eventually, he comes face to face with Hickey. Hickey is Doyle's nastiest man, and everybody whispers nervously about the horrible deeds he's performed since he was a child.
I tell you about all them little kids, burning up like candles.
The urban legend regarding Hickey's immense psychosis says that he killed his own father and later set ablaze the orphanage he was sent to, killing many children, wastes no time showing just how suspicious he is of Smith's true loyalties.
Don't believe everything you hear.
Hickey, Doyle's ruthless right-hand man, heads south to Mexico, unleashing a hail of gunfire on Captain Ramirez and his men, along with a corrupt border patrol officer tied to the liquor smuggling operation, and captures Giorgio alive. Meanwhile, Smith meets Felina at an abandoned church outside Jericho. A quiet, lonely woman, she tells him her story of how Doyle's men took her from her husband and kept her captive. Doyle treats her not as a person, but as a symbol of control, a trophy to assert his power. Back in Jericho, Smith is suddenly taken into custody by Sheriff Galt, who delivers him to Captain Tom Pickett of the Texas Rangers. Pickett is investigating the murder of the Border Patrol officer and makes it clear the state of Texas is done tolerating the turf war between Doyle and Strozzi. If one side doesn't wipe out the other soon, the Rangers will move in and finish them both off, and warned Smith that he has 10 days before the Rangers descend on Jericho.
If I was you, I'd be gone.
Hickey returns to Jericho with an offer for Strozzi, $100,000 and the stolen trucks in exchange for Giorgio Carmonti. Doyle, demanding a steep ransom for Giorgio, wants both the cash and his property back. In retaliation, Strozzi kidnaps Felina and proposes a trade, her for Giorgio. After tense negotiations, the two gangs agree to the exchange and leave. Following the deal, Smith finally accepts Doyle's offer but demands $1,000 in advance.
Nobody's worth that much.
He's good.
Better than that.
He plants a seed of doubt, telling Doyle he heard a rumor that Strozzi is bringing in more gunmen that very night. Knowing Doyle's obsession with Felina, Smith manipulates him further, warning that if Strozzi learns where Felina is hiding, they might try to take her back. Doyle takes the bait and sends Smith to the safe house where Felina is being kept, heavily guarded by Doyle's men. Smith walks in through the front door, calm and ready. The guards immediately send some things off, but before they can react, Smith draws his guns and unleashes a relentless assault, killing every last one of them. Moved by her quiet suffering, Smith decides to free her. Smith puts Felina in a car and tells her to flee across the border, and she gives John her cross. This act of compassion sets off a chain of events that complicates his position and exposes him to retaliation. Smith knows it's time to disappear, but instead, he stays behind at the hideout, waiting to deliver the bad news himself. When Doyle arrives the next morning, Smith calmly tells him that Felina was taken during the raid. Blinded by rage, Doyle believed him without question and swears to wipe out Strozzi and his gang before the day is over. But not everyone is convinced. Hickey is watching, and he's starting to put the pieces together.
This one hasn't been fired.
Smith returns to Jericho and tries to wash away the chaos with a quiet bath. But the peace doesn't last. Hickey shows up with news. Someone spotted Felina across the border where she sold the car. Back in the room, they discover her cross, confirming the lead. They capture and brutally torture him and drag him into a basement. There, the towering brute Jacko delivers a brutal beating, breaking several of his ribs, while Doyle asks him about Felina's whereabouts. However, Smith refuses to talk.
It's nothing. Not a gun.
Realizing he won't break, they leave him battered and broken. The next day, Jacko returns to finish the job, only to find the basement empty. Suddenly, Smith bursts out of a metal cabinet, using the smaller man as a human shield. He unloads a dozen rounds into Jacko, cutting him down. Smith makes his escape as Doyle's men scramble to hunt him down. Meanwhile, at Joe's saloon, Sheriff Galt informs Doyle that Smith is hiding out at Slim's Roadhouse in the desert. In truth, Galt knows the Italians are holed up there, not Smith. With the danger temporarily diverted, Smith slips out from behind slabs of ice in the storage cabinet and escapes with Galt and Joe Monday. As they drive away, they watch in horror as Doyle's men torch the building and gun down anyone who is trying to flee the blaze of fire. Fredo Strozzi and Giorgio, realizing they've lost, beg for their lives, offering to leave Jericho for good, but mercy isn't part of Doyle's plan. His men gun them down without hesitation, and Giorgio is the worst example.
Kill him.
Believing Smith was caught in the inferno, the Irish assume he's dead too. Smith returned to the abandoned church to recover, hiding away as he slowly regained his strength. Each day, Joe Monday quietly bringed him food and bandages, tending to his wounds. But it doesn't last long. The Irish catch on. Joe is captured and tortured. 2 days later, Sheriff Galt shows up at the church. He grimly informs Smith that Joe was caught sneaking supplies and will likely be tortured to death. Galt explains that Doyle and Hickey are still in Mexico, still looking for Felina, which gives Smith a narrow window to act. Galt then hands over his pistols and says it's the only help he's willing to give. Smith takes Galt's gun and sets out. On the way, he retrieves his lucky hat and stops at the Undertaker's window, one of the few friendly faces left in town. His destination, the old Strozzi Hotel, now occupied by Doyle's men, and Joe's prison. Smith bursts through the door. Each gunshot is thunderous. Enemies are sent flying as if yanked by ropes, the force of his bullets tearing through the room. He fights his way upstairs, where he finds Joe bound in a chair. Joe signals with his eyes toward a nearby cabinet. Smith doesn't hesitate. He fires. The heavy thud of a body hitting the floor follows. Jack tumbles out, dead. Smith pours whiskey over his gunshot wound. Before he leaves, he leans a Tommy gun against the door, his calling card, a clear message for Hickey. He tells Galt he'll be waiting at Slim's Roadhouse for the final showdown. Smith and Joe wait in the charred remains of Slim's Roadhouse. The next morning, Doyle arrives with Hickey and the mute deputy, Bob. Joe quietly hides behind. Doyle, looking worn and broken, claims he wants a truce. He's not after blood anymore, just desperate to find Felina. But before he can say more, Joe steps out and shoots him down, avenging the town that Doyle destroyed. Bob raises his shotgun, but Smith is faster. He puts several bullets into him before he can fire. Hickey drops his Tommy gun and slowly backs away, telling Smith,
I don't want to die in Texas. Chicago, maybe.
Hickey prefers to feign surrender by turning his back on his enemies and asking them if they would shoot an unarmed man in the back.
Maybe you're the kind of guy. Shoot an unarmed man in the back.
To which Smith coldly replies.
Done worse than that.
Hickey pretends to surrender, then goes to shoot, but Smith outdraws him and shoots him dead on the spot. John is definitely no saint, but at least he has some morals, unlike the gangsters he faces off against. As the dust settles, Smith takes Felina's cross from Doyle's lifeless hand, climbs into his car, and drives off, heading south toward Mexico, toward the road he was meant to take in the first place.